Uh, as a reminder, we are recording these sessions, and I will send out the link to the recording as soon as we get it processed and posted to the YouTube channel. That usually takes us a couple of days. We do have, I think, a shorter meeting today. However, we do want to continue trying to meet every other month just to provide updates. Kind of along those same lines, I want to make sure that everybody knows that we have our next HECAC meeting, and HECAC is the advisory committee that has people from the community colleges and the universities and the private sector to talk about policies and procedures when it comes to RDS. It's kind of the not the governing body, but it is the advisory committee to the State Education Assistance Authority. That committee meeting, the next meeting is on December the 9th. So I do want to say that whenever a potential topic comes up in that meeting that we feel like we need to call another meeting with the liaisons, we will do that to make sure we provide timely information to you at the colleges as you're trying to use RDS to serve your students. So I believe that our next meeting, though, probably will not be until February. I know we like to try to avoid January because of enrollment and registration activities. So unless something comes up in the HECAC meeting at the beginning of December, we won't have our next meeting until February. Uh, that's really kind of the system updates that I had today. And if you're following along on the phone, we're on slide number 3. So the only updates really from the system office is just the scheduling of those meetings. Uh, we did receive 2 questions for the online portal when we send that out. And I thank you for using that online form. That allows us to continue to try to keep this meeting valuable to you, is to make sure we're providing the information that you need. So if you have questions or you have an agenda item that you want us to cover, please put that in that form so that way we can make sure we address your concerns and questions and the issues that you need us to do so. So the question basically is about the possibility of automating the process of downloads of student statuses, especially when things change. Uh, this has been an ongoing problem or issue from the beginning of the implementation of RDS to attempt to sync the college system with the RDS database. That is not currently possible. There's some potential options in the future because of the partnership with Clearinghouse in the statewide continuous enrollment process, but there's not anything in process right now. So that's why it's so important to follow those manual update procedures on a regular basis. But there's not anything that currently allows for an automatic syncing of the status at the RDS database and with your college system. That's something you manually have to initiate. The second question that we've gotten has to do with some of our foreign students, especially when it applies to the public high school graduate exemption that's unique to the community colleges. Um, and one of the requirements to qualify for that exemption is to be legally admitted. We've gotten a lot of questions around that. What does that mean? How can we operationally define that? Historically, that has meant that you've gone through customs and you were issued a visa of some sort or some sort of status like refugee or asylee. And it's been just a very complex and complicated definition and application, to be honest about it. So John Harris, our current general counsel at the system office, he's researching it and he's actually working with SCAA and also with the UNC system. And I would expect that sometime in the near future, within the next few weeks, I hope that we will have a better definition of that. so that we understand how that applies not only to the public high school benefit, but maybe to other exemptions as well. So I know both those answers to those questions I don't have a solid answer now, or we're still working on it. However, just transparently, that is the best answers that we have at this time. So I'll pause there for a second. And I didn't do my screens correctly, so I don't know if I messed things up on what you're seeing. Uh, but let me pause and see if there's any questions in the chat box, or if anybody has would like to unmute and ask a question.
JW, just so you know, we cannot see the PowerPoint on the screen.
Yeah, thanks. I pushed the wrong button a second ago, and I'll get back to that PowerPoint right now. Thank you.
No problem. And I thank you for those questions. The first question was the answer I expected, but someone else asked me that. This is Joyce from Central Piedmont. And then the second question, I knew you were working on a version of this, so I wanted to bring this particular question to your attention as well. So thank you.
Yes, no problem. Again, I mean, this is what makes it beneficial for all of us, is that we can see that we can have those questions and have that more of a dialogue instead of me just with a talking head. So I appreciate those questions without a doubt. Are you able to see the screen now, the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Um, My computer's not quite moving the way I expected it to, but if it's working, we won't argue with it, right? I think there was a question in the chat box, so let me scroll up to make sure thank you for your patience. So those of you on the phone, I'll go ahead and read this. Have a question about continuous enrollment and active duty military retirement rule. The rule states that if the active duty member retires, the service member and his or her spouse and dependent relatives will continue to be eligible for the in-state tuition rate as long as they remain continuously enrolled in the degree program in which they were enrolled in the time of retirement. The service member's dependent must continue to be a dependent to qualify for the benefit. What is considered as continuously enrolled for the military retirement rule? Is it the same as continuous enrollment rule for all students? In the past, to be eligible for the military retirement rule, they could not miss a term. Can they miss up to 2 terms and still be eligible to use the military retirement rule? That is an excellent question. As you know, we have the RDS continuous enrollment definition and policy. But you may have a local admissions policy or registration and records policy that deals with continuous enrollment. And it may or may not necessarily be the same. When do you require a person to do a new application, basically, right?
I'll listen to the residency thing.
I'm sorry, we're getting some feedback.
Katie just called me.
Andrea, you're mute.
Has been making notes on people's files under the hold. So I told her she could just.
Okay, there we go. I muted her. I think my recommendation to you on the answer to that question would be, first of all, to simplify life. I think it would be simplest to align your local policy with the RDS policy. I think that is probably the common practice. I don't know for sure. However, that would be my first recommendation. If that RDS policy is not aligned with your local policy, then I think you have a decision to make. Which policy are you going to apply to the military continuous enrollment? My suggestion would be to follow the RDS one, so that way all things residency are following the same policy. So I hope that helped answer your question. Yes.
Hi, this is Kimberly. I'm sorry to interject, but I'm not able to follow you in the chat. I'm actually calling in, but I wanted to interject, if I may, that it is a rule that exemptions do not follow the continuous enrollment policy with RDS. Anyone that is applying for an exemption, such as the military, they do not follow, or they are not applicable to the RDS continuous enrollment policy. So because of the exemption. So therefore, we must, as you stated, follow the local rules for your institution in regards to continuous enrollment for military applicants.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that, Kimberly. And I agree that that RDS does not expect that the continuous enrollment be applied at the state level to the exemptions. And so as the local college is trying to make decisions on what continuous enrollment rule they follow, they have the choice between either their local policy or adopting locally what the state level policy is. And so I know we're giving you a non-answer there, Judy, and that it's a local decision. I would lean towards adopting locally what has been established by RDS, but it is not necessarily expected, as Kimberly pointed out. I see that Karen Fry has raised her hand. Karen, did you have a question? Karen, you're still muted if you have a question to ask. Okay, Karen, we'll go ahead and move on. And let's see. Oh, I see in the chat box now that you didn't have a question. Thank you, Karen. We'll move on then from the Q&A time. And we heard from Kimberly just a second ago. And Kimberly, I believe that you did not have any updates for us today. Is that correct?
That is correct. I do not have any official updates today. I didn't feel that was worthy of a slide for today, but I just wanted to chat with the group for a moment to let them know that we are still working on updating the RDS guidebook and the campus manual. Those documents remain with our legal team in review. They have been there for a while, but with COVID, once again, reporting that with COVID, things have been pushed back. I'm checking on that like every other week to find out the status of those documents. So as soon as those documents are ready to be published, we will send out an alert to everyone. But if you have any questions in regards to any policies, statutes, or anything like that, please continue your current format of contacting Dr. Kelly to let him know, and he and I will continue to, or SEA, continue to work with Dr. Kelly in getting a response to you timely with any questions that you may have. Any other updates from SEAA? I want to let the group know that I am officially retiring, and this will be my last meeting with you, and my last work day is December 16th. So after 30 years of service with the state of North Carolina, I am retiring, and I appreciate working with each and every one of you. And we will continue to, SEA will continue to work with the community colleges in regards to residency, and we will be in close communication with Dr. Kelly moving forward with filling that position. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kimberly. We appreciate your expertise and your experience over the years. And even though you cannot see the chat box, there's a variety of congratulations and thank you for your service type things. We're very excited for you, and we eagerly anticipate who is going to try to fill your shoes to continue to work with us. So we wish the best to you in your future and your retirement, Kimberly.
Thank you so much.
No problem, and thank you for being here today. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. I think I saw Tracy from RDS staff. Are you on the line, Tracy?
No, JW, it's Jean Ritter. She's not available this morning.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jean. I had forgotten about that. So Gene, I've basically taken the, I guess you can see the slides here, some of the updates that were sent out to everybody, and I didn't know if you wanted to talk about any of those.
Just briefly, a couple things in terms of the first quarter stats was the first thing on there. Is, so in other words, from July 1st through September, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised. The numbers were down compared to the same period a year ago. Fewer students coming in to start a request. So down about 10% from the same period the previous year. Likewise, the recent college application season saw a decrease. However, it's interesting because a lot of them are trickling in now at a higher rate than they did before. So I don't know where we'll end up. A lot of them, I guess, are working virtually, and the counselor isn't right there to keep nudging them. But in terms of the other numbers, at the end of the day, the percentage of who gets resident is about 84%. Between 1 and 2 for military exceptions, and non-resident about 14. Those have been pretty stable. Of the non-resident, that sounds very high, I know, to people in the community colleges. A huge portion of that are people in another state trying to come here to go to a 4-year. So they have to go through the system as well. The percentage of students coming back in a reconsideration appeal, are pretty consistent. The number one reason, again, for reconsideration is at the end of the day, they get in state, but they try to rush for the initial consideration. They didn't provide enough information, skipped too many questions, or didn't supply a document. So, the majority of those end up getting in state. In terms of age submissions, again, pretty stable. I can give someone the breakdown if they want them. We do see that kind of change a little bit in October, where you're going to have an increased numbers of students in high school applying. So during those months, we see a little bit of a shift to the 17 to 23 range. So since, just in case anyone wants to know, I ran this morning. I usually do morning reports. Since we went live in 2016, we've had 1.2 million unique students come through, and almost 1.5 million determinations. Since the beginning of the year, that's about 318,000 students and about 380,000 determinations. So pause there and see if there's any questions.
I'm not seeing any questions, Gene.
Okay.
We do, though, often receive a kind of a one-pager of that statistical report. Is that something you could send to me so I can share it out to the group?
I will do this after. Yeah, I'll send you our quarterly report and send that out. It gives you the comparison.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So moving on in terms of recent changes, we had a couple months where we didn't make any system changes. We typically go through that at CFNC and CFI when we're coming up on college app season or busy seasons. We don't want to get in there and make too many changes just in case there could be an issue. So we've started rolling out. We're constantly looking for ways to continue to refine and improve the system, both in terms of the student's experience as well as at our end to make processing more effective. So we did make a change in terms of file size limit, but also what documents we're restricting students to upload. This covers probably 99% of everything we get. Basically, we don't want to take something like a Word document where a student can, like these days, come up with a very professional looking Word document that looks like an official document, something that can't be changed or edited. So an image, or we'll take a PDF, and we have a file size limit. I don't think this is we've had a couple of odd type of file types come in. Took a long time to figure out that we couldn't open, and or people have uploaded videos of things like that. So this, I don't think it's going to affect most students, but they actually get a notice about here are the types we take. In the interview, we made some slight changes to the North Carolina National Guard path for the student, and some things we're going to talk about for the campuses to look at. In terms of the student experience, we have added one question. There is a provision in statute specific to the North Carolina National Guard for the Guard member only, not for the family. If they're a drilling member, they're qualified to get, and we document that, in-state tuition. So a student who doesn't otherwise meet criteria, and I'll talk about that, we're going to give that out in. They're a non-resident, but they're eligible for the in-state tuition, like the active duty military might be. But if it's their home, we kind of give them a shorter path through, because part of what we take is that contract. Their contracts are typically long-term, offered for 8 years, and they can be renewed. But if someone just has a brand new contract and or they just moved here, they wouldn't meet the duration. They could still get the in-state tuition. So to help process those and not have them come back on a reconsideration or an appeal, if they have a new contract or they just joined the Guard, and if they can give us a North Carolina driver's license showing that they've been here at least a year, we can usually shortcut them in that way. So this is preventing some students, a small number, but still having to come back. In terms of the website, we actually put on the, well, this isn't actually their website, but in terms of what you're seeing at the campus level, the category codes, to reflect some changes I'm going to walk through now about the National Guard for the campus. We updated that list of category codes. It's on that RDS Campus Resource website that you can access with the password, and we've updated that. And basically, it's just to clarify what we're doing with North Carolina National Guard. The way the statute reads is a student, as long as they're a drilling member, does not have to be living in North Carolina. And I know, for example, Central Piedmont's going to see a lot of these where we have a lot of folks that live across the border in South Carolina, but they come to North Carolina to join the Guard. They're not residents, but they are qualified to get in-state tuition as long as they have a contract. So they're going to get that out-in determination. So to clarify, we made some changes and we listed on there that really it's just the college just needs to look at an out-in determination. In those cases, we will pass on the tracking date of their contract. So, for example, that student who lives in South Carolina is not considered a resident of North Carolina, wouldn't be eligible for state grants. So that's the out part. But they are eligible by statute for in-state tuition as long as they have an active contract. So we will pass on those dates. So it's only those out-in that live out of state or otherwise get an out-in because they just moved here and didn't have duration that the campus would track, because it's an exception tied to the contract. So let me see if there's any questions about that. It's a very small number. Most of these folks live in North Carolina. They've been here. I think we have one that lives in Virginia, and then we have maybe 8 or 9 that live in South Carolina.
Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing any questions.
Okay. Let me also mention a couple other things quickly about changes that behind the scenes, what you don't see, or some of this will affect students, is we continue to try to find ways to refine the system, and or we try to do as much as we can electronically and not ask for documents. There's a couple situations where we just have to because of limitations of systems, notably immigration and military service. But we're trying to refine that. We have recently found a way to fine-tune some of these other documents of programs that we were asking for, such as a letter if they were participating and have Medicaid or food stamps. So that's been a big help in terms of less of a burden for a student to have to provide that. And we're finding other ways to, similarly, to enhance the experience when we can figure this out electronically. So we continue to do that. That in the long run will, benefit the student at their end, but also make less work for us if we don't have to touch additional documents. And I think that's it. Let's see if there's any questions.
All right, well, thank you for those updates. I'm not seeing or hearing any questions, but we'll give it just a second longer as I throw up the slide about RDS staff contact information. I always like to remind everybody, especially because we don't know for sure if we have some new residency liaisons, and that is that there's a RDS campus support, kind of a hotline for college level staff people who are working with residency. And if you've got that student right across from you and you need assistance to try to figure out what's going on with that student and try to help that student, there's a number that you can call as a campus support residency liaison to kind of talk to an RDS staff person right away and get some answers. And so you can see that number there at the bottom. Now we remind you though, that number is not for public publishing. We ask that you don't send that out to all your students. The RDS call center for students is right there in the middle. But there is that hotline, so when you're working with a student or you're running into a problem, you have somebody you can talk to. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat box, and I'll pause just a second. Are there any questions for RDS? Okay. Well, as I said, this was a very short meeting today, but we had a couple of questions, and then we knew that we had the RDS updates that had been sent out. So we wanted to make sure we had this meeting in November. We will not meet again until February unless something comes up during the HECAC meeting in December. And at that time, if there's something I feel like that is urgent enough to call a meeting, we'll call a meeting. Otherwise, we will not meet again until February. So before we hang up, I want to just say another farewell and congratulations to Kimberly on her retirement. We appreciate her service to North Carolina and to each of us over the years, and also want to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season as we're coming to the end of the semester. You guys have a great and wonderful day.
Happy holidays, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you. Be safe.
Congratulations, Kim. Brilliant.